Well, a very good morning to all of you students. Today we are going to start the first chapter of class 12 biology, that is reproduction in organisms. In this chapter we will discuss about various aspects of reproduction, their types, what are the different types of reproduction. Here we will come to know about various types of asexual reproduction such as fission, budding, fragmentation, spore formation, vegetative propagation, and so on. But before starting that, first of all, we should know that what is reproduction. The reproduction, just see here, a reproduction is a biological process by which a particular organism gives birth to a new organism of its own kind. Here, students, of its own kind, if we talk about the reproduction in which the organism gives birth to new organism of its own kind. Why its own kind is important? See, none of the organism is going to produce any other species. For example, suppose we are human, so we will produce human only. We are not going to produce dog or cat. Is that clear? So, reproduction is a process or biological process by which a particular organism gives birth to a new organism of its own kind. See, it is believed that none of the living organism is immortal. So, the living organism one or other day dies, but the species continues generation to generation. So for that continuity, living organism should reproduce. Living organism should reproduce. Now, if we talk about this reproduction procedure, so this reproduction can be further subdivided into two types. This reproduction can be divided into two types. What are those? The first one is asexual reproduction, and the second one is sexual reproduction. Now, if we talk about the differences between sexual and asexual reproduction, so there are many differences between these two. The first basic difference between asexual and sexual reproduction is that this particular thing is uniparental. Asexual reproduction is uniparental, which means single parent is capable to reproduce. But in sexual reproduction, that is biparental, which means two parents are required. If we talk about asexual reproduction, so this asexual reproduction do not involve gamete formation. That means no gamete formation is required. No gamete formation is required. Since a single parent alone can reproduce, so there is no need for gamete formation because fusion does not take place. But here in case of sexual reproduction, gamete formation is required. Gamete formation required. Moving further, if we talk about asexual reproduction, so it is comparatively faster process. Faster process, whereas in case of sexual reproduction, It is comparatively slower process. If we talk about asexual reproduction, so here the genetic informations are transferred from parent to offspring via different asexual means such as fission, budding, and here no variation is seen. So in place of variation, we can observe cloning over here. And in case of sexual reproduction, variation can be seen, and variation is one of the major property of sexual reproduction. If we talk about variation, if we talk about this variation, so we can say that variation provides the raw material for evolution. Raw material for evolution, which means without variation, evolution is not possible. So variation is one of the major characteristic feature of sexual reproduction. If we talk about this particular variation, so it enables the organism to survive in the changing environment. If there is variation taking place in different sexually reproducing organisms, so they can survive with the changing environmental condition. Suppose if we talk about a particular human being, so a particular human gives birth to several offsprings, and each offspring look different. So that is because of variation. So if we talk about variation, so it is one of the most important phenomena, and it takes place in sexual reproduction. And it is the reason that this sexual reproduction is considered better than asexual reproduction. We will discuss it later on in the upcoming sections. We will discuss why this variation is so important. If we talk about this asexual reproduction, few more differences. So asexually reproducing organisms show mitosis, whereas in case of sexual reproduction, meiosis can be seen, because the formation of gamete takes place through meiosis. I think you must be aware about mitosis and meiosis. These are two different types of cell divisions. So in mitosis, it is also referred to as equational division. So the chromosome number remains same in the offspring. And if we talk about meiosis, so a haploid chromosome or haploid organism with haploid chromosome number is formed. This is known as meiosis. So gamete formation takes place via meiosis. Here, if we talk about the gametes, so in asexual reproduction, no gamete formation is required. And if we talk about sexual reproduction, so gamete formation is must here. And if we talk about the gamete, so there is male gamete and female gamete. The male gamete if we talk about male gamete, so it is a sperm. And if we talk about female gamete, so it is ovum. And these sperm and ovum are produced from the primary cells or primary reproductive cells. In case of male, the primary reproductive cell are spermatogonium, or we can say the germ cell. And if we talk about female gamete or female germ cell, so it is oogonium. This particular oogonium produces ovum inside the ovary, and this particular spermatogonium inside the testis produces a sperm. So these are the basic differences between sexual and asexual reproduction. Few more differences are there that you can find in your book also. But these are one of the important differences between sexual and asexual reproduction. Now, moving further, first of all we will discuss about the lifespan. So what is lifespan? If we talk about lifespan, so this is the time period between birth and natural death of an organism. Time period between birth and natural death of an organism. See, this lifespan does not depend upon the size or shape of the organism. You cannot say that a particular organism is larger in size, will have larger lifespan, such as elephant. You can't say that elephant is one of the largest known animal, so it will have largest lifespan, because elephant have a lifespan of 70 years only, and so as human too. Human also have lifespan of 70 years. If we talk about the lifespan of few other organisms, such as if we talk about rabbit, so the lifespan of rabbit is 9 years. If we talk about a snake, so the lifespan of a snake is about 20 to 23 years. So different organisms have different lifespan. And this particular lifespan has been categorized into different forms, means different phases of the life are there. The first one is birth phase, the time when a particular organism takes birth. The second one is growth phase, also known as juvenile phase. The third one, if you talk about, so that is reproductive phase. And the last one is senescence or aging. Senescence or aging. See students, none of the cell reproduces as soon as it is produced. Each and every cell has a particular period which is known as reproductive period or reproductive phase of their life in which they can reproduce. See, if we talk about a small child, less than 10 years you can say, so he or she cannot reproduce. The reason is, since their reproductive organs are not mature till then. So as soon as these organisms attain reproductive maturity, then only they can reproduce. They cannot reproduce prior to that. I hope you have understood what I am saying. So now we are going to discuss about the asexual reproduction. If we talk about asexual reproduction, as I have already told, it is a type of reproduction in which an organism is capable enough to reproduce without the help of any other organism. Which means gamete formation is not required here. Since gamete formation is not required here, so what are the different processes through which these organisms are reproducing? So this we have to discuss over here. If we talk about asexual reproduction, So, as I have already mentioned, that asexual reproduction is a type of reproduction in which single parent alone is capable enough to reproduce. It does not require any partner. It is a fast process comparatively. You can say that as compared to sexual reproduction, asexual reproduction takes place faster. If we talk about this asexual reproduction, so it can be further grouped into following types, such as the first one is fission. See, fission and fusion, both the terms are antagonistic to each other, but look similar. If we talk about fusion, so it means joining of two bodies. That means the male and female gamete fuses together to form zygote. That takes place in sexual reproduction. It will not take place here in asexual reproduction. So in asexual reproduction, the first term is fission, or the first part is fission. So if we talk about fission, so fission means dividing or division or separation. So if we talk about fission, so it is a type of asexual reproduction where the parent body is divided into two or more new individuals. So if we talk about fission, so it is generally of two types. First one is binary fission and the second one is multiple fission. If we talk about binary fission, the best example for binary fission is amoeba. If we talk about multiple fission, so the best example is plasmodium. I hope all of you must be aware about plasmodium. See, plasmodium is a causative agent for malaria. Let me clear you. Some of the students are knowing that malaria is caused due to female Anopheles mosquito. No, that is wrong. This female Anopheles is the carrier, is the vector. It is the carrier of this plasmodium. So malaria, the causative agent for malaria is Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium falciparum. There are few more species of Plasmodium that causes malaria. But one of the basic form is Plasmodium vivax, which causes malaria. So both these things, binary fission and multiple fission, are the type of fission. And in binary fission, the organism is divided into two new individuals, as in case of amoeba. And in case of multiple fission, when we talk about multiple fission, so the organism is divided into two or more than two individuals. If we talk about this binary fission, so it can again be subdivided into two forms. That is transverse binary fission and the second one is longitudinal binary fission, you can say. When we talk about this transverse binary fission, the second one is longitudinal. Let me write it here. This longitudinal binary fission takes place horizontally, which means the cell will divide horizontally and it will be at a right angle to the longitudinal axis. It will be at right angle to the longitudinal axis. Just check it out here. Suppose we are taking the example of planaria. We can also take the example of paramecium. If we are taking the example of planaria, you see this is the body of the planaria and the division will take horizontally like this, which means in this particular nucleus will elongate first and then it will divide from here, and once nuclear division is taking place, soon after it there will be cytokinesis and it will form new organism. So this is known as longitudinal binary fission. The example of longitudinal binary fission can be seen in paramecium. I am writing it over here. Example is planaria, paramecium, etc. And if we talk about transverse binary fission, this can be seen in euglena. This division takes place through the longitudinal axis. See, if we talk about euglena, it is something like this. And this particular division takes place longitudinally like this. Firstly the nucleus will divide and then the whole organism will be divided. So this thing is known as transverse binary fission. See, one thing which you have to keep in mind is that whenever we are talking about the longitudinal division or transverse division, so it simply means the division of the nucleus that is taking place over here. See, here the nucleus is divided horizontally and here the nucleus is dividing longitudinally. So in case of transverse binary fission, the nucleus divided longitudinally, which means it will be perpendicular to the transverse axis. So this type of division is known as transverse binary fission, and in case of longitudinal binary fission, the nucleus divides horizontally and then the whole organism divides. These are the two subparts of binary fission, and this particular explanation completes the fission, which is a type of asexual reproduction. It is the first type of asexual reproduction, that is fission. The next one is budding. So if we talk about budding, so it is another form of asexual reproduction. If we talk about budding, so budding is a type of asexual reproduction in which an external outgrowth from the parent body called bud appears, and this bud after maturation detaches itself from the parent body and grows as an individual. For example, you can see this in Hydra. See, like this, a small bud appears, and after maturation this bud will detach itself from the parent body and will grow as a new individual, and the parent body will remain as it is. This type of asexual reproduction is known as budding. It can be seen in different plants also. There are many plants where bud formation takes place, and if you cut that bud and grow somewhere, that particular bud will regenerate as a new plant, which later on will form tree. So student, for today, we are ending our lecture up till here. In the next part, we shall be discussing about the next topic in asexual reproduction. We have to discuss fragmentation, regeneration, spore formation is there, vegetative propagation is also there. So that shall be discussed in the upcoming sessions. Alright, till then, stay safe, stay happy, goodbye.